Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Sure, what's going on with my screen there? If everybody can put their name and their role / organization in the chat feature, we'll use that to do introductions and make the best use possible of our time today. I'm going to give it another minute or so for additional people to join. Hope everybody's staying cool today. All right, it is 1:31, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started here. Kind of have a lot to go over today. I want to make sure we get you guys back to your regular day's business as soon as possible. So I'm going to start with updates from the state's attorney's office. And one of those key pieces of information I think that everybody's always interested in is our data. So let me just see here. So statistics, as of yesterday, we have 26 active participants. That does not include, I believe, 5 that were recently archived based on our new archiving policy. This is the racial demographics of the current 26 active participants. This information, as well as the total number of active participants, is available on the state's attorney's website. If you know anybody in the community who's questioning or wondering how this is going, that information is updated monthly on the state's attorney's website, so it should be pretty accurate. In addition to the 26 active participants we have currently, there are probably 4 or 5 that we're still trying to connect with to make sure we offer the pre-arrest diversion services. Few more stats here. These are the numbers per agency. So you see the Sheriff's Office has 13 active participants. Elgin has 7. Carpentersville has 2. Those are the 3 agencies that have signed policies with pre-arrest diversion. The other 3, Carpentersville, the other 2, Carpentersville, Aurora and Sugar Grove, are still in test phase. So we are working with a couple test participants, test cases with them, and they're reviewing the policy currently. So we've not actually signed a policy yet, but we're working on getting there. And then some more breakdowns. This is getting harder to see, sorry. If anybody wants this sent in their inbox, actually, I'll just include it in the minutes. This is the breakdown of racial demographics by agency. So another interesting piece of data to keep an eye on. If anybody has questions, go ahead and jump in. I can read things. I know it's kind of small. And then the last piece is the types of referrals. So you'll remember from previous meetings, we talked about how we were working with some cases post-arrest to try and build trust in the system and how it works. So the light blue lines here or bars are the those are the post-arrest cases. So those are the individuals who went through the arrest, but it was determined by the state's attorney's office that pre-arrest diversion was a better fit and response for those individuals. So those are the post-arrest cases. The green bars are the social contact referrals. So those are the referrals where law enforcement knows that individual would benefit from our services and has offered it outside of an actual arrest situation. So I think those are by far our greatest numbers, is the social contact referrals. It does seem to be a means of getting people into pre-arrest diversion services that is easier to start with. So usually with new law enforcement agencies, when we go in and do the training with them, officers are much more ready to send us a social contact referral right away. And it seems to be a good way to get things rolling. So that's why we have pretty high numbers of those. And that's not something that's going to go away at all. The post-arrest we tried to pull back on because it was kind of not lining up with our goals and our intentions with pre-arrest diversion. However, the state's attorney wants to continue those a little bit longer to kind of build up our system. So we will be taking some post-arrest cases. So those are our stats. We do have, and I'll send the link also with the minutes. We did recently create a promotional / educational video about pre-arrest diversion that has several of our participants who were willing to be on camera and tell their story and how being in pre-arrest diversion has helped them, as well as officials, so law enforcement officials, state's attorney, and some other community members talking about pre-arrest diversion. So that will be, it should be up on the website today. It's about 14.5 minutes. We're going to have a shorter cut that we'll be able to share more easily on social media and things like that. That's part of our kind of outreach to the community to build up awareness about pre-arrest diversion, understanding about what it is and what we do, and to try and help build buy-in from the community, from the officers, just kind of support the work that we're doing. In terms of buy-in, numbers are still low, but they're really not terrible in looking at other sites around the country. It is an initiative it's a sea change for law enforcement, so it takes time. But we're still addressing actively the issue of buy-in, reaching out to law enforcement, trying to establish good relationships, have our case managers present to answer questions, and our community engagement coordinators working on that quite a bit as well. One issue we are working on for pre-arrest diversion is the issue of building space. As most of you know, we're currently hoteled in building management. So it's not ideal. Building management would like their space, they need to hire. So we have applied for several grant funds that would potentially help with a build out. The county has identified space within the circuit clerk's office, so that's a possibility. We're still working on addressing that issue, but I know that building management needs their space, so it's something we're trying to actively address and make sure we can make happen. Particularly great if grant funds can help get us there. Another thing that we're looking at is the issue with the statutory limitations of the state's attorney's office. Because this initiative typically does not reside in the state's attorney's office, it is, we've run into, in particular, issues with use of participant funds. So most of our grants include a chunk of funds set aside to provide food, clothing, pay application fees, transportation costs, things like that for our participants. And unfortunately, the state's attorney's office is not allowed to provide those things. So we're working to find a solution. We met with Civil yesterday to talk the issues with it. And some of you may remember one of our grants is actually with the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office doesn't have that same issue. So that's one way that we're able to address it and still meet some of our participants' needs. It's just not ideal because most of us are housed in the state's attorney's office. So that is something that we're working on. We're also looking at adding some verbiage to both our policies, which we need to add cultural competency verbiage to, and then the non-discrimination verbiage needs to be added to flyers. So that's a policy issue. I'll be sending out the drafts of those to you all once we get that firmed up with Civil a bit. And then my last piece of update is the Lead National Support Bureau obviously is coming next week. So we hope to see all of you, or as many of you as possible, attend some of those events. They're getting in on Monday evening. They'll be here all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, and half of Thursday. So I believe I sent out the schedule of those events. If you can be at any of those, encourage others to attend. We're really trying to work on building up community awareness of pre-arrest diversion, because I think that's going to help us get more active participants in pre-arrest diversion and help more people. So that is my update, and I'm trying to see. I think I see Officer Burrows from Carpentersville. Would you like to give an update for Carpentersville from law enforcement end?
So one of the participants we haven't had any contact with that I'm aware of. However, Mr. Johnson is a trying case, to say the least. I deal with him almost every day. I talk to Chris normally. I was actually just texting him yesterday about Jamal to try to see, like, hey, is there something else we could do? Problem is, like, the program's fantastic when he wants to do it, not Chris, Jamal. When Jamal wants to do it, and when he wants to be a part of it. But I mean, if sadly his caseworkers and they're like holding and working him through it, like he just goes off the rails. So right now he's kind of
where the coroner's office is,
with what's going on, but he.
Okay, thank you.
I'm having trouble with the audio. Is anybody else able to hear? No. Okay. Officer Burrows, I think. Oh, okay. So, all right, we'll see if we can get her back on here. Do we have anybody from Elgin PD? I don't believe I see anybody from Elgin PD.
Yes, you have Commander Bianchi from Elgin PD. How you doing?
Hi, Commander Bianchi. Hi, thank you for attending. Do you want to give a brief update on Elgin?
Didn't realize I was going to be asked for a brief update. I was just asked to attend as Anthony Regano, Sergeant Regano is usually one working with all of our clients in collaborative crisis unit. And he is off this week in a training class. I know that we've been talking and we've been trying to address some of the issues like you've talked about with the buy-in, and we've been educating and doing a lot as far as the personnel, the people that have been in pre-arrest diversion. I don't have any updates. I apologize. From what I've been told in the past, recent past, that they're working through it, and it's just the also getting people to want to be into the program as well once offered.
Okay, yep, sorry to put you on the spot there. I wasn't sure if they had,
Not a problem.
if they had warned you. So yes, I know we're actively working with Elgin on spreading the word with officers and also with the community. There have been some individuals who are offered pre-arrest diversion who didn't want to sign up. So that's another thing that we're working on. Jennifer, you have a question?
Yes, well, I might be able to add something here. So I'm the director of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, and we work very closely with EPD. There's been one individual that I know myself and our rope officer has been talking with Jennifer Peacock about. And so I'm not sure kind of where that person is at in process, but that's been some recent discussions. And I can just also share that we actually had Jennifer Peacock come out and talk about the program to a group of downtown business owners last month we do like a quarterly stakeholders meeting. So that's like business owners, building owners in the downtown area. And we did have about 10 people attend that meeting, and she was able to speak about the program. We did get some really nice feedback from some of those businesses that they felt like it would be a helpful tool, based on just kind of our experiences down here in the past.
Okay, thank you for that. And Sheriff Office, Corey, did you want to give an update from the Sheriff's Office? I don't see Sergeant Salinas.
I'm not going to be able to give the full update. Sergeant Salinas is usually with us right now, but I think you gave an overview of how many cases we have referred. That is accurate. We're currently always continuing to push our deputies here to continue to refer. And so it's an uphill battle, as I'm sure any other police department on here knows. But it's a continued effort and continued education of the program and the differences between this program and, say, some other program that a department may have going on. So we're continuing to work. If you would, do you want me to talk about the bylaws since I have the floor, or would you like to come back to that?
I would like to come back to that, if that's all right with you.
No, that's fine. Just
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem.
All right, so overall, I think Corey kind of encapsulated it with all of our law enforcement agencies. We're working on just addressing concerns that they might have with buy-in, just in general with understanding the process and the procedures and how this works. And as Officer Burrows was alluding to, there is a process of understanding that some of the individuals our case managers work with will from time to time backslide and seem like they're going the wrong direction. The benefit of this initiative is that their case manager is still there for them during that time. And so it might be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and we keep going. So our case managers are persistent and continue to work with an individual as long as they're willing to show up to meetings with their case manager. And that's, obviously part of the initiative is that 58% reduction in recidivism is obviously not 100% reduction in recidivism. So we do expect to see some issues like that along the way. In terms of our community engagement coordinator, Jen Peacock is actually at the Aurora Food Bank this afternoon. So she gave me a brief update to share. Her community engagement has focused on the upcoming LEAD National Support Bureau training and the days that they're here. She's been doing a lot of community outreach around that. Most recently, she's been attending community meetings, especially in Elgin. There have been a couple community meetings around issues that impact pre-arrest diversion with houseless individuals, issues in the downtown. I think Jennifer Fuglo spoke to some of that. So she's been engaging up there as much as possible and trying to increase awareness with those individuals who could benefit from pre-arrest diversion, as well as with business owners and leaders in the community to help point to pre-arrest diversion as a resource for helping those individuals. So she's at the Interfaith Food Pantry today. She'll be doing the job fair up in Elgin on the 21st. I believe there's another police task force meeting, listening meeting this weekend she'll be attending as well. And then she and I will both be attending the PTAC conference. That's the Police Training and Community Collaboration. It's a deflection and diversion national conference. That's at the beginning of August. And then she'll be engaging with some other faith groups and food pantries. So if anybody knows of agencies in the community, whether it's service agencies or even faith groups that she should be connecting with, you guys can always feel free to reach out. If you talk to somebody in the community who does not know about pre-arrest diversion, let us know and we'll get Jen there to make sure that people are hearing about it. So that is her update, and then we'll jump back to Corey. Corey and Danielle and Stacy had comprised our bylaws committee. Unfortunately, Stacy took a job somewhere else, so she is no longer on our policy coordinating group, and we lost touch with Danielle. So Corey has put together a draft of bylaws. We are going to connect with the Lead National Support Bureau next week when they're here. There is that meeting on, I think it's Wednesday morning at 8:30 that anybody on the PCG is welcome to attend to kind of go over our bylaws with them and kind of talk through what's worked at different pre-arrest diversion sites that they've worked with, what works, what doesn't work, what suggestions they have, kind of make sure that we get this more formalized going forward. And then I think I'll let Corey take it from there. We're going to just kind of look at the draft. We'll get some initial feedback. And then if anybody would like to engage more in this conversation, I would encourage you to attend that meeting with the support bureau next week. So Corey, do you want to share your screen or do you want me to? I don't know if I have it here.
You have to enable it.
Let's see. Hit the wrong button. All right, are you able to share now?
Okay, can everyone see my screen? Perfect, thank you. All right, so as Martha was saying, with us being the PCG, we need a standard guidelines for how we operate as an organization. And for that, we are going to put into place bylaws that are going to be similar in nature to other PCGs around the country. And so what I've been able to do in coordination with Martha is to put together a basic bylaw that we will adhere by as an organization. And so I'm just going to briefly go over everything. And you can give me feedback as I go through this, but just understand that any feedback that you give, if you give it during, while I talk about this or afterwards, that'll be included into the copy that'll be sent out to everyone. And then the next meeting will codify those bylaws once we have, once everyone is on the same page. Okay. So before I go into everything, one of the first things that we need to figure out is that if we are going to be more of a governing board, which we currently are set out to do, or if we should be more of an advisory organization. And the difference between the two is, one is simply just giving guidance as far as policy is concerned, which is the governing portion of it, versus the advisory one that's more of just saying, giving everyone's 2 cents and saying what we believe should be going on. But the ultimate decision is left in the hands of the pre-arrest diversion team. So that's one thing I want you all to think about. And if you have a preference of one way or another, or if you have any questions about that, you can ask those right now too as well. Okay. And we can come back around to that if you don't have anybody raising their hand or saying anything, Martha. Okay. So the purpose. So, well, let me go a step back. So the name of the organization is the Pre-Arrest Diversion Policy and Coordinating Group. Pretty straightforward. Article 2 is the purpose. The PAD Policy Coordinating Group is countywide, is a countywide advisory board with the focus of providing advice and guidance to the Kane County Pre-Arrest Diversion Initiative. So again, this is written as an advisory as opposed to the governing that we initially set out for. But it could be the other way around, and that's just something that we have to determine as a collective. Number 3, Article 3, our goals. Number 1, reorient collective response to safety, disorder, and health-related problems. Number 2, improve public safety and public health through research-based, health-oriented, and harm reduction interventions. Number 3, reduce the number of people, particularly Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, entering the criminal legal system through punitive responses to low-level conduct related to unmet behavioral health needs. Number 4, eliminate racial disparities at the front end of the criminal legal system. Number 5, sustain funding for alternative interventions by capturing and reinvesting into systems and savings. Number 6, improve police-community relations. Okay.
And I'll just add that those goals are the stated goals of the LEAD model, which we follow.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. Next, we have membership. And this reads, the PAD policy or PAD policy coordinating group shall include high-ranking representatives of local law enforcement, police and/or sheriff's department, public health agencies, mayors, county executives, public defender's office, prosecutor's office, city council, civil rights and/or racial justice organizations, community representatives, and the business community, which we currently have pretty much all of those bases covered right now, which is great. Individuals or the organization that represent must be located in or serve the people of Kane County, which is self-explanatory. We would love to deal with the world, but we're going to focus on our county first. Lastly, the membership of PAD and PCG shall consist of no less than 7 and no more than 15 individuals. So we know that and a lot of people have the right heart for this kind of work, but maybe not the bandwidth, and we don't want too many cooks in the kitchen. So we want certain types of individuals as already listed to be a part of this, which you all are. So that's great. We have that box covered. Next, for the meetings, general meetings shall be had on a quarterly basis, which isn't too much, with additional meetings as needed, not to exceed 8 meetings per calendar year. And each partnering organization is allowed up to 2 representatives. Okay, so really we're going to set out to meet 4 times a year, but no more than 8 times on an as-need basis. Next, we have attendance. Attendance shall be taken for each organization, and we want to make sure that everyone attends at least 2 meetings per year. So we know that everyone obviously has jobs and other things going on, but we do need to hold each other accountable, and this attendance by law will help us do so. Next, we have the officers. We're currently set up to have a chair, co-chair, and a secretary. Martha, I believe, is serving as the chair, but we do need a secretary, and I believe we still need a co-chair, but we may not have to have a chair or co-chair, and we can just operate with a secretary. So without those 2 chair and co-chair positions. So that's something that we have to figure out. Next, When it comes to voting as a collective, all members who are not staff of Kane County Pre-Arrest Diversion may vote. A 2/3 vote of all of the members, or I'm sorry, a 2/3 vote of the members, one per organization, is required to certify a vote. Voting may occur during general meetings or virtually, as we are now. And lastly, when it comes to amendments, any amendments to these bylaws may be adopted by a 2/3 vote of the members present at any meeting, provided written notice of the proposed amendment and the date of such meeting shall have been given to the members at least 2 weeks in advance. When bylaws are amended, a revised copy that contains the revisions will be prepared. So that's standard 2/3 vote, majority vote wins for voting and for all votes, including the amendments. So that is pretty much everything. And I think right now, if we could, we may have missed something. So, if there's something that's not here that you believe is really important, please let us know either now or via email. And we will work on trying to include that to make sure that this is the perfect document. So I'll take any feedback that you may have right now.
This is Vern. Can I start?
No, Vern, you must go last.
Well, then I can start and finish all at the same time.
Okay, go ahead.
First off, when Martha did her opening and saying that this particular organization cannot really not continue to operate under the auspices of the state's attorney's office, I'm beginning to think that we may need to be a governing board rather than an advisory board. And if we have this as a governing board, then we would be the organization in control of the board would be in control of what the group does. So my comment on that is that I think that should be something we seriously consider.
So
Okay.
I might have confused things at the beginning about being functioning under the state's attorney's office. We're not going to cease functioning under the state's attorney's office. Is that what was assumed from what I said? I'm not sure.
I assumed that you could not effectively use certain funds if you operated under the state's attorney's office.
So that's the case right now. So we're looking for solutions to that, not departing from the state's attorney's office. We're going to be meeting with legislators next week with the lead bureau when they're here to talk about how they could make amendments to some of the legislation about diversion deflection in the state that would, because currently the deflection and diversion legislation in the state of Illinois does not specify that a state's attorney's office can house the initiative. They currently only state that law enforcement can house it, and they don't consider the state's attorney law enforcement. So that's one part of it. Another part that we're looking at is the ability to expend funds on participants, and in particular funds for food and drink, because and I think there's one other piece that we're looking to amend. So the legislation that was written, it's in the Safety Act and it's in the Community Law Enforcement Partnership for Deflection Act as well. It's the same verbiage in both. Was written really for deflection, and deflection means an officer encounters an individual in a similar situation and basically gives them a referral or a ride directly to services, to treatment. And so since we're doing diversion, which is also written into the legislation, it's just not supported in numerous ways. So there need to be some amendments to that. So I don't see the initiative actually ceasing to exist under the state's attorney's office. If anything were to happen, it might be a discussion to have that we might move under the health department. That might be more suitable. That's kind of a long ways out and it's a bigger conversation. But I don't I don't see us going in a direction where we won't be under one of the county departments.
Okay, my
That helps.
only objective was to see that you continue and get all the tools and the support that you need, so.
That's what I thought. So I just wanted to make sure I was clear on my end.
I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet. I got it now.
You're good. No, I think that the conversation about the governing board versus the advisory board really came about because, and I know I've discussed this before, in most other lead model pre-arrest diversion sites, the policy coordinating group is the group of leaders in the community that come together and make the plan and do the fundraising or get the grants and hire the coordinator to get pre-arrest diversion started in their community. So that's where those policy coordinating groups serve as a governing board, because they're the ones that start it, they're the ones that do everything that keeps it going. And the way ours got set up and the way we're functioning under the state's attorney's office in the county, your role then becomes a little bit different because you don't have fiduciary responsibilities, you're not doing hiring. It's just a little bit different where an advisory board might make more sense. So that's kind of how that came about. But I'm completely happy to entertain discussion on whatever. I didn't want to put you all in a position where you have to take on more than is necessary. So any other input, ideas, feedback?
So I
Let's
have
be
a,
open to it.
I have a couple thoughts. This is Bernie Mae from Family Service Association, and I promise I will bring them all together. So bear with me for 1 second. So my first thought is like the wraparound flex funds, which is like what we call that in a social service environment, those dollars to be able to do that, I think are incredibly important. So my experience from our partnership with the Aurora Police Department is that about 70% of the individuals that we interact with are folks who are unfunded, have no insurance. And so there's a lot of barriers to care. And so that's where your flex funds become also critical in being able to get past, I think, some of those significant barriers. And so I think what I would maybe recommend taking a look at as a fiscal agent for portions of your grants, and because I think you would be able to achieve that and it would help you get around that kind of goal. And I know there's like lots of other groups that work via fiscal agents to achieve those kinds of things. And so I think it would also on that line be helpful to know that data about the participants as well, like what type of, do they have insurance? Do they not have insurance? Do they have, state Medicaid insurances? Or because that has a lot to do with your ability to successfully connect people to treatment. I think age and gender would also be interesting data to be able to take a look at. Our experience, again, is that we have a lot of those transitional age young adults. And so, again, those are components for advocacy, I think, is being able to understand that there's gaps there that we can connect things together with. And Corey, I just wanted to say excellent job on putting everything together. So, but I think the other side of that is I'm not sure that we meet frequently enough to be really effective as a governing board. So I like the idea of more of an advisory council. So.
No, that's no, thank you for that feedback, and thank you for the compliment too. But I will not take that all. That is also is Martha too as well. So but thank you on the behalf of us both. But to your last point about the well, let me back up to the point about the fiscal agents. I really like that. So I've taken notes here, so I think that we can probably squeeze that in here, and I'm just in agreement with a lot that you had to say. And the comment, I mean, if we do governing versus advisory, I think there's pros and cons to the both of them. But let me add in something here. No matter which one that we choose, when we vote a lot of times on things, you probably have seen these emails from Martha asking for feedback or asking, yay or nay to things. We can do votes via email, but we have to get a overwhelming majority when we do. So no matter which one we choose, everyone has to be engaged and respond to those emails so that we can do the business of the coordinating group on the back end. So I just wanted to add that in here so that everyone is aware that we really do actually need everybody to respond and to say yay or nay to things so that we can continue to operate. But the governing board versus advisory board, I can go either way on that. I think I probably lean more toward governing versus advisory. But at the end of the day, we're doing the same work. But I do want to be guarded from fiduciary responsibilities at the same time. So I'm just talking against myself right now. But thank you, Bernie. Appreciate the feedback.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you, Bernie. In regards to the insurance data, we do have that. I didn't pull that in those reports, but I can pull that as well. And then backing up to the wraparound funds, the options that we've looked at, and it's interesting that you mentioned that now because we had been talking with members of our community leadership team who were interested in helping to start a foundation or 501c3 that could house those funds. We could actually sub-grant the funds that we have for that purpose into a foundation where those funds could then be utilized. So that is something that we've been exploring. My understanding currently after meeting with Civil is that even that would have to be kind of done statutorily. I know CASA has a foundation, but that was part of the legislation that they create a fiscal agent to manage those funds because they actually use funds for similar purpose to support the individuals they serve, as does drug court, I believe, has a similar situation, but that was all done through legislation. So any way we do it, I think we need to get legislators on board with doing some amendments that will actually better support diversion work in Illinois. So that meeting next week will be really important. But now that you mention it, I mean, if we do go in that direction for the wraparound funds, which will be necessary in the long run, even if we have these grants right now that are providing wraparound funds, I think it will be necessary in the long run to have a supportive foundation or fiscal agent. I think that might be a good, I don't know how that would tie into a governing board or advisory board, or if it would be better to have that set up through the community leadership team, but that could be a discussion to continue.
Sounds good. If I can just mention one other thing too. I mentioned briefly the officers. I think it's Martha is currently the chair, but I just want to point out that Martha doesn't have to be the chair. And if she isn't the chair and someone else is, this will be something that we'll rotate in and out. I personally think it's probably most appropriate to keep her on as chair right now, given that she's boots on the ground and more closely aligned to this work than any one of us. But I did just want to clarify that. That's not necessarily predetermined. That's just what it is right now, but that can change. And we don't have a co-chair or secretary. So I just want to reiterate those. So if there are any takers, please raise your hand, speak up, send an email, make a phone call, a Snapchat, we'll take it.
We'll also have to discuss terms.
Yes.
For those positions too.
Mm-hmm. So that's all I got. So if there's, any other feedback, I'll take that too.
I'm not seeing any. It's a lot to take in, and I will include this document in the minutes so people can review it there and send feedback after. And then if anybody would like to come to that meeting next week, if you need the details resent, if you would like to attend virtually and you can't get here in person, let me know. I'll set up a Zoom. We can have it in this room as well. So Thank you, Corey. I don't see any more questions. I don't see any hands raised, I don't think. So we can move along. Last item here is just general questions, comments, feedback from members. Anybody have any? Doesn't have to be related to the most recent discussion. It could go back to anything else we covered. If you have any questions or comments or concerns. No, pretty happy bunch. Okay. Hi, Penny.
Hi, everybody. Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm the treatment advocate with Recovery Centers of America. This is the first time I've attended this meeting. I tried to be here in person, Martha, but I couldn't find the building. So I'm in my car in the parking lot somewhere.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. But I just wanted to introduce myself, and I'm looking forward to getting to know everybody and to be a part of something really awesome. So thank you for the invite.
Thanks, Penny. Great to meet you. And yes, we are very hard to find, and I'm sorry. We're hoping to move to a location that's much easier to find. All right, I see no other comments, questions, concerns. As always, feel free to reach out in between meetings, and you'll definitely hear from me in between meetings. Hopefully we get somewhere with the lead bureau's support next week with regards to bylaws. If you had thoughts on some of the things we talked about and didn't feel comfortable sharing them here, feel free to email any of those, and we'll continue that conversation. I appreciate everybody for showing up today. All right, we'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.